A 1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh, hello.
Welcome, friends of the show. We are back with another episode of the Serious Rock Talk podcast.
Ooh, all right.
A big thanks for your emails, suggestions, and your support on our social media platforms. Continue to email us at seriousrocktalk@gmail.com. Find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Okay, buckle up for some serious rock talk. Hello, everybody. This is Ferris Kennedy, and beside me, I have Dr. Ian Clarke.
Hello.
You're listening to us on the Serious Rock Talk podcast. Today's podcast is very special. We will be speaking with members of the Wayward Saints, a Mississauga, Ontario-based band, to put it plainly, that is keeping the spirit of rock and roll alive. We're going to find out about that. There are 5 members to this band. Let's list them. Miss Lindsay Coleman on vocals, Mr. Darren Flower on guitar, Mr. Justin Bennett on guitar, Bill Bertram on bass, and Aaron Bennett on drums. And today we are lucky to have with us on the podcast guitar players Justin and Darren. Welcome to the podcast, gentlemen.
Hello, guys. How are you?
Oh, great. How you doing?
How you doing?
Doing great, thanks.
Excellent, excellent. So I'm so glad you guys could take the time today out of your busy schedule. Darren, I just want to ask you one thing. How did we meet, just for fun, so you can let our listeners know?
Well, you know, the internet is very powerful. Facebook, there's a lot of good things about it, maybe some things that are not so good about it, but one of the good things about it is the ability to make friends, and there's a lot of great groups out there that I'm a big believer in. And we, I believe, met through the Canadian classic rock Facebook page that boasts about 45,000 members. Met a lot of great people from there, and yeah, so that's what that's how I think we met.
That's fantastic, and we've been friends ever since that day, and we have shared some excellent conversations. So, without further ado, gentlemen, I will ask you a question, and we'll go from there.
Okay.
All right. So, Justin, Darren, when was the band formed?
Justin, you want to take this one?
No, I guess I'll let you handle it.
Okay, all right, fair enough. So this is a lot of fun to talk about. Well, it first went into I was playing in a band called Stone River from 2003 to 2015, and the band was on shaky ground. So I quit that band in November, and I tell people immediately, like the second I decided to quit, in my head, I wanted to form another band that was of the same kind of vein, classic rock revival. So I went to work trying to find band members. But, so that was November 2015. And maybe in February 2016, I got a friend request from Justin, who, I don't know, stumbled upon my Facebook posts. And I'm always posting about cool bands like Humble Pie, Zeppelin, the Allman Brothers, and whatnot. And he sent me a friend request. And then I started talking with him a little bit, and he seemed like a pretty cool dude. And I guess months later, he invited me to his birthday party, and we were hanging out, having a couple adult beverages responsibly, I might add. And we were singing songs and doing harmonies and whatnot. And we both had a goofy grin on our face, and I could tell he was like thinking, maybe I should start a band with this guy. And in my head, I was thinking, maybe I should start a band with this guy. So back in 2016, at a birthday party, I like to think the band was kind of formed then. Okay. And then after that, we started talking. We're like, hey, well, you're not really doing much, and I'm desperately looking for band members. You seem cool, which he is. And that's kind of how it started, just 2 guys at a birthday party.
Over adult beverages, you're saying?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Do you still have those adult beverages once in a while, just out of curiosity?
Every once in a while, try to be a responsible fella, try not to go off the deep end. But yes, every once in a while, I'm known to drink a beer or two, or 10. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Hey guys, how would you describe your style of music? I know I hear a few influences there for sure. How would you describe it?
Well, what do you hear? I'm curious to know what you think this sounds like.
I'll tell you, I hear Stones. I hear Doors. I hear, this is obscure, but I hear a little T-Rex in there. I hear some Southern rock. Not quite Allman Brothers. Maybe in that area, though, because of the guitar work. That's just off the top of my head. That's what I heard. So I know when you compose, you don't consciously ape anything, but those influences stay with you when you get together. So I'm wondering what you guys feel when you do playback. This sounds like so-and-so, or that's kind of a Keith Richards mix, or that's, a Zeppelin thing. What do you guys hear?
Well, it's interesting because when we first got together and started recording the tracks, we kind of had a bit of a similar idea as to yours. We're kind of hearing some Southern rock. We're kind of hearing this and that.
Yeah.
And we ended up asking a lot of our, friends, peers, everybody, what they thought. And the answers that came back were twice as strange as we thought, because there were names of people that I don't listen to or just caught me so off guard. And, but I think that's really it, though. I think it's our influences and the things that we listen to. Even if you try not to, they still come out either way. So, yeah, a lot of those are definitely some of my influences, and I think comes out in the band for sure.
Yeah.
I like to call this classic rock revival because, it's 2023, so we're obviously not living through the 70s, but I would say the kind of music that we try to write and play is very late 60s, early 70s arena rock kind of stuff. So I would say that this is new age classic rock. In my head, this is what I think this sounds like.
That's what it struck me as. This is a guitar band and the classic rock setup, right? There are no keyboards here. Classic rock setup. And that's the way I felt about it, too. I mean, it could have been in the best way from the 70s.
We'll take that as a big compliment because, that's truly the, I believe some of the peak when it comes to, some of our favorite music. So, to hear something like that, I really appreciate that.
No, well, you're welcome.
And we're glad that you're actually bringing back that sound because I that's all I listen to, and I'm so critical. And Darren, we've had conversations personally, you and I, regarding the types of music today and how it could be a brain buster sometimes of what's going on. So I'm really happy to hear that you guys are back on the classic rock train, and the fact that you're Canadian, that's just a double bonus right there.
That's true.
The other question I had for you gentlemen is, we'd like to know, what was your first experience with making music?
In the very embryonic stages of this band, Justin had an incredible bass player friend. He still does, but we were jamming with him, and I found a drummer. While he was a nice guy and he was skilled, he wasn't really a rock drummer. So, in 2016, we had most of a little, I guess a backline band. I know how much Justin likes that term, but we didn't have a singer. But we were hacking away at ideas that we brought to the table. So, the very first memories that I have that I can remember, 1,000 beers later, is, a bunch of guys getting together and, just having fun playing rock and roll. It was fresh. It was exciting. It's been a little while since I played with people, like maybe a year and a half.
Yeah.
So, just getting back on the horse, whatever. But I would say it was fun and exciting because, I was in a band for, 12, 13 years with mostly the same people, which, that was a special time in my life. But this is something new and, again, fun and exciting. And, you can hear, or at least I like to think that you can hear the potential in the song. So as we're hacking out these ideas, I'm like, yeah, this sounds pretty cool. Wow. So fun and exciting. That's what it was.
So how does the songwriting, speaking of that, how does the songwriting take place? Does some guy walk in with an idea, with a riff, with a lyric? Is it collaborative, or how does that happen?
You'll usually, me or Justin might have a riff. Sometimes maybe more than that, maybe a good part of a song written, and then we bring it to the table. Everybody gets a chance. It's like a big old piece of clay,
You're right.
and everybody gets a chance to put their thumbprints on it and whatnot. I hear an idea, I'm like, that's cool, but maybe, we could, tweak this ever so slightly, or maybe I'll come up with a part after it or whatever, or Justin will. So, sometimes somebody might come to the table with like, mostly full, complete idea in their head, but then, everybody gets a chance to kind of massage it a little bit and, again, put their fingerprints on it. So, yeah. But then every once in a while, sometimes there's a riff that just gets thrown in the air. It's like, what are you doing? That's cool. Let's jam on it. And so, sometimes it just comes out of thin air. But I feel a lot of the times, like, things are somewhat prepared. And then it's like, hey, look what I got. And, so that's what I feel things are like.
So teamwork, really, a lot of it.
Yeah, there's no I in team, right?
No, there isn't. But it's good that I like the collaboration. I like the fact that sometimes they say the best things just so happen. It just happened. You out of the blue, boom. It just you worked on something.
Oh, that's the chemistry.
Yeah, and that's what the chemistry is. And speaking of chemistry, I'd like to know for our listeners, both you and Justin, we like to know who are your few musical influences that influence you to get things going in the music world.
Well, for me to start off, I have to say, like, I started listening to rock and roll at a very young age. So I was growing up listening to guys like Angus Young of AC/DC, and Slash was a big influence on me, like when I was much younger. Still is now, but by the time I turned about 17, 18, I heard a guitar player named Clarence White, who was with the Byrds for a short period there.
Oh, wow.
It kind of made me go back and discover some of the bluegrass music and things like that. Got into Jerry Garcia's Old and In the Way kind of thing. And so, like, to me, it's like I love the rock and roll, and I kind of took a left turn in terms of guitar playing. I was playing a little bit more technical as opposed to, sort of playing from the soul, kind of that. I guess more the Southern rock comes out a little bit more like that instead of, alternate time signatures and crazy things like that. So that's kind of where I'm at now. I'm still definitely listening to lots of different things, but in terms of guitar playing, I'd say that's a big one for me.
I started off, I was, I'm not afraid to admit this, is kind of funny, but I was a juvenile delinquent. So when I was 12, I listened to a lot of angry music, a lot.
Right. So
when I was 12, I listened to a lot of Pantera and Alice in Chains, Corrosion Conformity, Megadeth and stuff like that. And so at first, a lot of the stuff, and I always was, into, guitar. I would say me and Justin are both guitar enthusiasts, but I always loved lead guitar players because I was always razzle-dazzled by some smoking leads. So I wanted to be, a lead guitar player. It's very important to be able to play rhythm well. That's actually more important, in my opinion. But it's nice to, I think a lot of people they get caught up in the smoke and pyro, of the lead guitar playing. So, I grew up with a lot of heroes, as players, a lot in the metal world. But I started mellowing out around 17, 18, and I started really getting hard on classic rock around 18. Like Zeppelin 2 became like the Bible to me. So Mr. Jimmy Page is a big hero. I mean, all the guys in the band, Zeppelin's, big hero to me, and Justin will say the same. Oh, yeah. And, there's a lot of great players out there. I really like the Allman Brothers band, and, with slide guitar playing, you can't help but to think about Dwayne Allman and Johnny Winter. Yeah. There's just so many great musicians out there. How much time do you have? We can talk about this for a couple hours if you'd like. Yeah. But, I would say Jimmy Page is somebody that I keep in mind a lot. When I think about riffs that I wrote or Justin has, I think to myself, what would Jimmy Page think? Would he give us a nod of approval? Would he give us a thumbs up?
Good.
I think I like to think we have high standards because we have heroes that, play very well, write very well, and are truly, top flight musicians. And we want to try to measure up to them as well, too, if possible. But, our heroes inspire us to get better.
Well, this is interesting because you guys have listed off two guitarists that are always been in my top three, which is Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin, because that's, he can't do no wrong. Justin, you had mentioned a bit of Slash. And the third one I'd always like to throw out there is always Eddie Van Halen, because of what he did electrically. But the last thing I want to tell you guys on the guitar portion is that if there's one underrated rhythm guitarist out there, has to be Kim Thayil from Soundgarden. Agree or disagree?
I don't know what to say about that, but I can tell you as a brown guitar player, Kim Thale was super important to me. I like Alice in Chains more. However, Kim Thale, for me, anyway, since you brought up that name, he was a very important person in my life because he opened the door for people like me or the fellow from Sum 41. I'm sure Billy Talent would say the same thing, Ian Dessa, whatever. So, yeah. But as far as, underrated rhythm guitar player in general, I don't know. I can't really comment. I never really put in the time to really think about this or assess his playing. I should, though. You just kind of, I'll think about that.
He's a smart guy. Trivia, he's got a PhD, eh?
Yeah? I can believe that. In what? Rock and roll?
Well, I think it's normally philosophy that it goes in because it's a degree in philosophy, but I think the major had to do something with, could have been musical. I'm not 100% sure, but I did read up that he is basically known as Dr. Kim Thale. So,
Doctor. Okay. Yeah. Well, that's fantastic.
Sometimes, I was just thinking, when I think of a classic rhythm guitarist, I always go back to Steve Cropper, right? For some reason, Booker T. Yeah. I always think of him and Otis Redding. Yeah.
That's nice.
They're one of the best backing bands, and definitely one of the greatest rock moments on film has got to be Otis's set at Monterey. That's such a great band.
Oh man, funny you brought that. I was watching that last week. There's something out there called Monterey Outtakes.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I was watching a bit of the Mamas and Papas, who I love, and then I was watching some Otis, and God, he was good. Yeah, and those guys backing him, they're still kind of dressed like 50s guys with their hair slicked back and stuff.
You could tell. Oh, yeah.
It's really cool.
But they're so tight. They were so good that night.
Oh, they were. Steve Cropper still around. He did a great interview maybe a few years ago with Ronnie Wood, and he's talking about writing with Otis. How close it was to getting Dock of the Bay made, right? And Otis never heard it, by the way. He didn't live for it. But anyway, it's a very dramatic interview. But he's still around, Steve Cropper, yeah.
I believe that's why there's the whistling was because it was never completed.
Was that? Oh, really? He just put it in. That's cool.
Yeah.
Oh man, you guys have performed a lot. This obviously goes to both of you. Is there a particular performance? I'm always interested in live performance that stands out for you when you really felt you nailed it. You got it right. Well,
it's funny that you mentioned this. As it turns out, I guess we're a victim of circumstances on this one. As a band, we've only played one show together. So it's not like we have multiple shows under our belt, years of touring. No. Okay. And this is actually funny because what happened is that we talked about how we formed the band in 2016.
Yeah.
I guess this segues to how we found the rest of the people. It took about 4 years to find every single person. So by 2020, we had the lineup. And then what happened? COVID.
Oh, shoot.
And of course, with lockdowns, we weren't able to jam properly. It was a really tough situation. It was a tough situation for the world, but I'm sure there's a lot of band members who never got a chance to get together properly. But we were I would say, technically we were born during the pandemic, but me and Justin actually put in a lot of time before the pandemic looking for people.
Okay.
So, 2021 lockdowns and whatnot, it prevented us from getting together and hash no more songs. But once all that finished, it takes, first of all, anybody can write a song. I just can't guarantee that it's going to be very good. So, with our compositions, we always try, because of high standards, whatnot, it takes a lot of work, a lot of discussion, discussing parts very thoroughly, which can be, kind of maddening. But it takes a while for us to put together songs because, we're very critical and hard on ourselves. Okay. So our first performance ever was at a local festival in Mississauga on July 22nd, I think, of last year. So as far as moments like it was good because I never really played music with anybody on stage before from this band.
Oh, is that the one on your that's the one on your site, I think, right? It's like an amphitheater, a small amphitheater.
Yes, that's correct.
That's great.
So it was great because it was our first time really playing, together, in a live show in front of people and stuff like that. Adrenaline is pumping, and I thought that we did a pretty good job, and it was great because there has to be trust within members. I want to be on stage knowing that the bass player knows what he's doing, which he does. The drummer knows what he's doing, which is I don't want to ever have to second guess any of the members. I think Justin might feel the same way too. So it just, it was good. It was a good feeling.
Are you guys, you guys like seem like seasoned pros. I had no idea it was a first.
Mind you, we've been in bands before this for many years. So
right.
Yeah, right. It's just that it's a new project, and it was our first show ever. So we I'm sure had our butterflies, whatever, but because we are pros, we know it's not our first rodeo either, right?
Yeah,
so I like to think we know how to handle ourselves.
Yeah, right. No, you did a great job. I had no idea. Good for you.
Oh, thank you.
Gentlemen, I want to ask you guys, what do you find difficult about being a musician?
That is a wonderful question, and boy, I have a lot of laughter with that one. I tell you what. This guy knows.
I love it. I love it. I know exactly where he's going.
Did you see this guy right here laughing? That boy ain't right, I tell you.
Good old Hank Hill in the house.
Okay, getting back to being serious. Difficult things about being a musician. I don't want to monopolize this conversation. I can, but...
I mean, I'm sure we probably each have our own opinions, of what's tougher on us as individuals. But, I mean, definitely, as Darren was telling the story earlier, about trying to find members and things like that, it's it doesn't really matter how good the music is that, we could create just to get 5 people, the competent musicians in a room and everything. To me, that's one of the most challenging things. And then, being able to, work writing songs together. Basically, if you're not getting along, you're not going to be able to write songs together. So luckily we've, we could keep it together and write some songs and everything. But, I think it's trying to get members together and especially when you're a new project and you don't really have you're not playing festivals on a regular basis to try and win over a drummer, for example. It's kind of hard to say, no, we don't have any gigs yet. We're still working on material. It doesn't really give the musician a want to come and play. So it definitely makes things hard. But yeah, that's my answer.
Okay.
Yeah, there's so many different things that I can talk about with it being hard. Being a musician in Canada, one of the things I'll talk about is that it's kind of hard to find peers, like bands that have a very similar sound that we can do shows with convincingly. Because now, if you want to do modern rock or punk rock, that's cool. Do your thing, right? That's great. Right. But we do old style rock and roll, and there seems to be a shortage of bands that do this kind of sound in Canada. I know a bunch of bands in the States, a lot, and remember they have 350 million people. Yeah. But here in Canada, it feels like a lot of people are trying to do heavier stuff or modern rock, and again, that's cool. God bless them. But we want to do this. So, one of the good things about what we do is that I like to think that we have the ability to stand out because there's not a lot of bands that sound like this. But one of the, I guess, the sucky parts about this is that it's really hard to find bands to connect with. Actually, shout out to a great band from Ottawa. Maybe you know of them, called Taming Sorry. And if they didn't live so far away in Ottawa, maybe we would do shows together habitually. But, they're a great classic rock revival band and a band that I would feel very happy to perform with habitually because we're in the same kind of realm.
Okay.
Right? So it's a difficult thing to try to find bands, all over Ontario to connect with. I personally don't like playing the variety show where, one band's metal, one band's rap rock, one band's I'd rather try to find the right bands to play with so we could share the same audience. There's so many different things that present a challenge. This is one of them to me. This is a big one.
Well, cross-genre for sure, it could be a challenge because obviously you guys have one style of sound and then you're appeasing to the audience that loves that sound. And then when you start cross-genring, you got to win over the metalheads, right? You got to win over the country people. So I understand your point where you're coming from, saying, hey, you know what? I don't want to go to these variety shows where there's a mixture. You want to go to a show where it's specifically what you are skilled in. And that could, I could see where you're coming from.
Here's some great trivia just came to mind, classic rock trivia. Do you know who once opened for the Monkees? Hendrix.
I was just going to say I was kind of...
Yeah.
Didn't he? I never
He
knew.
didn't last long. I mean, they both looked at each other and said, "You know what? They're screaming for Davey and Nikki." And he comes out with, Purple Haze. Imagine that. I think it lasted like a week. But
There's a good, a handful for sure of different bills that I've seen, and I just scratch my head going, who put that bill together?
I know. It just, you give a really good point. You look at it and say, what?
Yeah.
But think about it. If you could go back at the time on that day, get a few autographs, have Jimmy sign something, you're good to go, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, it's kind of like Dylan 66 going electric, right? Everybody was hating on him, and it's like to go back in time now, everybody would eat it up.
Of course.
I know. That's a great... Pennebaker made a documentary on that. It's a great documentary. It shows Dylan going... I think the band's behind him.
Yep. Oh, yeah. I think it's everybody except for Levon because he wasn't in the band temporarily.
Oh, yeah, that's it. And it's very bizarre if someone shows up to Dylan Judas. And,
Yeah. What a movie.
What a great movie. What comes to mind here? So what kind of advice would you guys have for young musicians like 18, 19, guys just starting up? What did you do wrong that you can say, wait a second, don't sign that or do this or what have you?
Whoa, how much time do we have? Well, it's supposed to be a 20-minute interview. Is now clocking in at after 30. And, hey, we can talk about this, but there's a lot of things that, oh, man, okay.
Just give me one then that sticks.
Ooh. Well.
One each. One for Darren, one for Justin.
Okay. If you are hoping to become a star.
Right.
Or anything in life, really, not even just a rock star. You want to be a basketball player. You want to be a carpenter. You want to invent the cure for cancer. Don't try. Just do it. Just go all in and, build your dream. Because I don't want anybody to wake up, when they're 40 and say to themselves, oh, I wasted my life. I should have done this. I should have done that.
Yeah, right.
So my advice to anybody who is young and has big hopes and dreams, follow them. I'm a big fan of dreams.
Yeah.
And I say, do it while you can, because there's going to come a point in time where you might not be able to follow that.
Follow your dream, follow your passion. That's one of the big things. I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
Justin, you want to chime in on that one?
Yeah, I mean, specifically talking about music, definitely for me, there's some of the missteps that I've done. I feel like I could have been a much more competent musician earlier on, but handful of things like musical theory, learning more about musical theory years before I did would have been more beneficial. Probably learning to read sheet music is something I always wanted to do, but some of these things, they're not essential to becoming a very great musician. Just, if I was to do it all over again, those are some of the things I would have liked to do.
Every good boy equals fudge.
That's it.
Every good boy deserves fudge equals fudge. Yeah. And I'm a music teacher. I should know these things.
Every good boy deserves fudge. That's what they say.
Remember that one.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, the final question that I'd like to ask you two is very simple, is how does where you live affect your career?
Well, that's interesting.
That's a good question. You want to answer this?
Well, I mean, this is something we've talked about before in terms of, we're fortunate to a degree. We're fortunate because, we do live in a, fairly decent populated city, at least in terms of Canada. But, at the same time, New York's a stone's throw away. So, that is good. But then say if we wanted to take this to, another province, for example, it's a long drive. And some of those places, there aren't big populations. So, you're kind of doing it to do it, right? And that's the tricky part. But I don't know. What do you think?
Well, we're very blessed to live in Southern Ontario, particularly where we're at, Mississauga, Toronto area. There's a lot of great cities and towns, kind of within the 2-3 hour radius.
Right.
So, life would be much more difficult if we lived in Lethbridge, Alberta. I'm sure it's a lovely place, but I can see doing music being very difficult and problematic.
Yeah.
So I think that there's a lot of people who in this area who often take for granted where they're located. Because as Justin pointed out, 9 hours away, I'm not sure if he knows that's the drive, but that's approximately, the travel time is New York City, where if you, do your homework, maybe you can connect with management or a booking agent that has an office out there, and they come to see your show. So, again, if we lived in Lethbridge or maybe, Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, again, I'm sure it's a lovely place, it would make life a lot harder. Hey, if we even lived in Sault Ste. Marie, which is Ontario, life would still be very hard as a musician, So we're very fortunate to be where we're at. Like I said, there's a lot of great places to play in the area. Again, if we were in Alberta, I wouldn't be able to say that exact same thing.
Yeah.
So I think that's great. We're able to go, play all these like cool cities and whatnot. So I think we're very fortunate to be where we're at.
Well, that's true. And gentlemen, I just want to thank you guys for taking the time. And we'll tell everyone here that we're speaking with Darren Flower and Justin Bennett from the great rocking band, the Wayward Saints. Appreciate everything you guys are doing today. I know you guys have a busy afternoon ahead of you, so I don't want to keep you guys too long. So I definitely look forward, or actually we actually look forward to speaking with you again. You want to call us anytime.
Yeah, keep in touch. Let us know how you're doing.
The line is always open for you guys. Always.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate that so much. And if I can just finish up over here.
Sure.
If you, first of all, we're not the Wayward Saints. We're actually Wayward Saints. All right. So there's that. I thought I needed to correct you a little bit on that. If anybody is interested in hearing our music, you can check us out, on YouTube. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Instagram, Spotify. If you like old style rock and roll, check us out because you might enjoy it.
You heard him.
You heard him, ladies and gentlemen. That's Darren Flower and Justin Bennett from what's the name of the band, guys?
Wayward Saints.
There you go.
Saints.
Oh,
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks guys.
Thanks a lot, guys, and we'll talk soon.
Bye-bye.